Hello everybody, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Jim Patterson with Wicresoft, and today joining me is Matthew Willey, also with Wicresoft. Our topic today is Project Online for New Product Development and Road Mapping with AHA Integration. We're looking forward to sharing this content with you today. Some of the topics we'll cover today are the market trends that are driving the need for a solution like this. We'll talk about new product development lifecycle and how project and portfolio management fits into NPD or new product development. We'll also talk about Wicresoft's OneConnect solution to bring these things together, and we'll give you an overview of that, and then talk specifically about our Project Online and AHA integration using our OneConnect technology. We'll spend a bunch of time in the demonstration showing you this stuff in action, and then we'll finish up with some summary items and some next steps and some offers that we have for you. So with that, let's get started with the content. What's really bringing about the need for solutions like this is the rise in technology and the fact that we're all becoming software companies at our core, regardless of whether or not we're traditionally low-tech or brick-and-mortar type of companies. As we've seen the Woolworths of the world or other department stores become Amazons, the Blockbusters become the Netflixes and the Hulus, taxi cabs become an Uber and Lyft, or even soft drinks being done in a computerized fashion in fast food restaurants. The idea is it's bringing about new ways of business and thinking that impacts all parts of the organization, whether it be executives, the PMOs that manage the projects, the software developers that have to come up with the products or the solutions, and the organizations that have to support all these. The idea being is we have to come up with new innovations, and that drives the need for additional products and services in our companies. And through that, we have to keep up with the pace of change or the pace of rapidly changing marketplaces. To that end, change is really the new norm. We have to be on top of it. We have to be nimble. We have to be agile in many cases. And the idea that we're in the past, we had slower paced business environments with long lead times and market cycles and life cycles, and the ability to do more steady as she goes, kind of phased or staged implementations over time. We really have to have the need to meet a more unpredictable business environment where constantly responding to change and being able to redirect and turn on a dime is important. And in this new marketplace, where we might have had a 2 to 3 or 5 year window for a product that we come out with, the life cycle before that gets supplanted by a new version might be 12 to 18 months. So we have to get it right, and we have to get it out there quickly. To that end, there's a lot of current and future trends, but the one we're going to focus on today are more new product development and connected systems in the marketplace. You know, granted, there's a move to the cloud today for cloud systems. There's a rise in Agile because of more software development and new product development. There's a focus on visualizing data, and even things like machine learning and AI and predictive analytics are with us and rapidly moving forward. But the focus today out of these trends is really the new product development and connected systems. Now, when we put these things out there, ultimately we're projectized. Product efforts or product line efforts ultimately come into development projects that have to happen. And organizations often fall short of their potential in this area. One is very few organizations, 43%, actually have their projects closely aligned with the strategies and objectives of their organization. If that's true for new products, we're really missing the mark, meaning 57% are not well aligned with the objectives of the organization. And projects in general in the industry have shown to be only 62% as meeting their goals, both from a output, schedule, and the cost to bring those things in. Meaning if we're falling short on alignment and falling short on execution, all of that light gray area is up to untapped potential or areas for us to get better. And it's important that we do this, especially in the new product development arena. So let's talk about the new product development lifecycle a little bit. More new product development, as I'm talking about the speed of innovation and all that change, is breeding the need for more and more new product development. And these efforts represent projects that can have many dimensions to them, not only on the research side, but on the market evaluation and analysis, and the product development and feasibility itself. And to do that, we have to incorporate more agile, lean, and other rapid iterative approaches to keep pace in the market today. In many organizations, separate new product development tools are often in use, and these create in and of themselves different silos of information that maybe make it difficult for us to be effective or efficient in doing this. New product development is the lifeblood of many organizations, and these efforts need to be incorporated into a more holistic project portfolio, because in essence, portfolio management is about managing a company's investments, and leadership wants to be able to see a holistic portfolio and track the effectiveness and how well their investments are tracking that we decide to make in new products and other types of projects. So if we look at an NPD lifecycle, we talk about from idea all the way through introduction into the marketplace. And from an idea perspective, every product has to start with an idea, and in some cases it could be simple. It could be based on it could be a new product that's based on something simple, similar that already exists. In other cases, it could be something revolutionary and unique, which means the idea generation is part of a more involved process. And the idea is the task of coming up with the next big thing could be a major R&D effort along with developing it. Now, from a research perspective, an organization may have plenty of ideas for a new product, but once it has selected the best of them, the next step is to really start researching the market. And this enables us to see if there's likely to be demand for this type of product and what specific features need to be developed in order to best meet the needs of this market and to also outstrip our competition. Then we get into development, and this is the next stage in the development of the product. Prototypes may be developed and modified through various designs. The manufacturing stages may need to be come up with an approaches, and ultimately we come up with a finished product that we think the consumers will want to buy. And then we go into testing, and before most products are launched and the manufacturer spends a large amount of money on production and promotion, most companies will test their product with a small group of actual consumers and get feedback from there to see if there's any changes that need to be made before it's launched. And then analysis is really looking at the feedback from the consumer, and it enables the manufacturer to make any necessary changes to the product and also decide how they're going to launch it to the market. So with information from the real consumers, they're able to make a number of strategic decisions that will be crucial to the product's success, including what price to sell it out and how the product will be marketed. And then there's the introduction, which is finally when a product has made it all the way through the new product development lifecycle stage, and the only thing left to do is to introduce it to the market. And once this is done, good product lifecycle management will ensure the manufacturer makes the most of this effort and investment and gets the most out of the lifecycle. So in essence, we have these things that go on from involving research and development, going into the development areas, marketing, and other aspects, manufacturing, and other aspects of the company all get rolled in. Now, in managing this from a system perspective and managing these complex efforts, Microsoft Project Online is a way to manage these as projects and a portfolio of projects. Now, it is designed to be an end-to-end solution that includes some strategy and ideation, allows you to do high-level planning to help decide what projects or products you're going to embark upon, more detailed planning to execute on these things in a very detailed fashion to ultimately have a successful outcome or a product out the door. There's collaboration tools so that teams can work together on these things, share documentation, identifies issues and risks and other things around it, and also provide insights and reporting around it all. And this is all done in the Microsoft Cloud. Now, granted, this is a general project management system that can be used for a variety of different projects, including new product development, but it allows you to track all of the investments that leadership decides to make for an organization. Now, more and more, with certain specific targeted NPD tools out there, we may find that certain organizations are using things like AHA as a tool more on the front end process. So from doing a vision and mission and strategy that evaluates things like strengths and weaknesses and how to position in the marketplace and fully flush out the opportunity before we get into more projectized mode. Oftentimes people are doing this and road mapping the potential projects or products that they're putting out into the marketplace in a tool like AHA. Once we do that, though, it doesn't negate the fact that you still have to execute. And the idea that Project Online still fits into the mix to allow you to optimize the portfolio, help you make better selection and optimization decisions, and also then track these on a number of different dimensions that we'll talk about going on through. And the use case that we're talking about in this webinar today combines the best of breed on both of these solutions to give you a more positive outcome. So let's look at project and portfolio management for new product development and how that fits in and what value it may add. So the use case for PPM, in this case, Project Online would still serve as the portfolio management piece of this equation. In it, you have a portfolio of all your investments or projects or programs. You can actually go through an investment approval process, whether it be business case and such, so that leadership can get on board and say, yes, we're going to spend money on this particular effort. And we can do the ongoing financial and resource capacity planning in there as well. On the front end, AHA really provides all that front end strategy and objectives and mission and vision, as well as high-level road mapping of the things that the organization wants to do. But once we decide to do on those things, then we have to get into execution. On board, there is a whole slew of execution capabilities within Microsoft Project Online so that we can get down to very detailed task-based and resource-assigned types of efforts and other capabilities. But the idea here is that you can go from the early idea stage and the more objective-oriented types of things all the way through the detailed execution to completion with this. The PPM capabilities in Project Online that really are needed to supplement what's done in AHA are the governance and investment approval, the financial management, the resource capacity planning, the portfolio management and optimization and selection of projects, the project execution tools, and even what-if analysis tools that it has in it. So the idea, the marriage between these tools can be very powerful for NPD. Now, portfolio management, for some folks, that may just mean portfolio visibility and being able to see and track all investments and see them on a single pane of glass. But it can also mean intake and project requests and business case justification. It can mean portfolio alignment and prioritization as to when we want to do things and where we want to put our investments, and even resource capacity planning to see whether or not we even have the resources in-house to do these things or what it might take to get those things done. The idea is to optimize the roster and the timing of the efforts that we take on. From a resource capacity planning perspective, we can't get things done if we don't have the resources to execute. So always having an eye on resource capacity, which is a strength of Project Online, is something that is to be factored in as a success criteria for the plans and roadmaps that we put in place. And then from a financial management perspective, putting in budgets to help justify the project and get them approved, revising forecasts as things change so we can keep leadership informed of what we think it's actually going to take, and then actuals to date, tracking what we're actually spending and what we've incurred so far, or even planning benefits that we expect to achieve and the timing that we expect to get the returns on this investment and all the reporting around that. This is a strength of PPM that's not in AHA. And then we talked about Agile as an approach and more iterative approaches. So while Microsoft Project and Project Online have some strong execution tools, and they have the early semblances of some Agile capabilities in there, and you should explore that. But people are using other Agile tools today, things like Visual Studio for software development for more software-driven types of projects, where you might execute in Visual Studio and have that feed into the portfolio, as well as potentially more waterfall projects in Microsoft Project. More and more people are using tools like Jira to do Agile. The same use case exists where the portfolio is actually managed in Project Online, but the detailed execution is being tracked in Jira, and the net results that are appropriate for the portfolio get fed back to Project Online for visibility to leadership. And also time management. If people want to do time reporting and capture how much resource effort is being spent on these new product development efforts, you're not going to find that in some of the NPD tools, and you're going to have a mechanism in Project Online to provide that, whether that information is coming from the Agile tools or from Project Online itself. The idea we can start capturing actuals against the time spent for cost control and resource management. And then ultimately, the project intelligence, the business intelligence that comes from using things like Power BI with natural feeds to get visibility into all the data that we're managing in these tool sets is something that provides decision support, gives us an idea of the health of the investments that we're tracking, and also helps us decide what to do next and how to respond to change. So what makes this all possible for these tool sets working together is Wicresoft's OneConnect. What we have is a platform in the Microsoft Cloud that connects these tools together to make them work seamlessly as a common single solution, even though it may be made up of different components. These productized connectors, as unified for NPD, really has a centralized portfolio in Project Online. And our platform called OneConnect really allows other tools to interact with Project Online. So if we look in the upper left at the software and product development tools, AHA, Jira, Visual Studio are all tools that can seamlessly connect and are already mapped to connect with the relevant areas of Project Online so that leadership, your PMO, and other folks in the product development leadership roles can actually keep their finger on the pulse of what's going on and look at it at an appropriate level, whether it's high level for senior leadership or more detailed level for other management and other stakeholders within the process. These things can also tie, just as an aside, to financial systems so that we can actually get real-time financial data, other planning systems that are out there like simple task management tools like Asana or Office 365 Planner, or even other service management tools like ServiceNow and Dynamics 365 or Salesforce for the CRM areas. The idea is this OneConnect is productized connectors that keep you from having to develop custom one-off connectors that often get outdated as APIs change and as systems change. So specifically about the Project Online integration with AHA, let's talk about some of the AHA capabilities. When you start doing your early planning and your road mapping, you really identify a potential product. You then look at the vision you have for that product and you set some goals and you establish some initiatives to kind of do that. You set some high-level timelines with maybe an idea of when you'd like to release certain things and have some releases in mind. And then not from an execution level, but you would define at a very high level what they call master features and requirements in that solution so that we understand what those broad-based things are that we would like to deliver. And ultimately, there's an idea section in there to collect some feedback and make sure that we flush out those initiatives as well as we possibly can. In it, with those dimensions of information that are carried, the ability to look at roadmaps and some analytics around that is possible within AHA itself. Also, building some high-level roadmaps. Now, this is not a schedule or a tactical plan to actually execute on this project, but to give people an idea when it is that we'd like to deliver these things. It gives us the ability to provide high-level roadmaps to interested stakeholders or people that want to see the vision of direction of where we're going. But then, by integrating this into a portfolio management system like Project Online, you can actually see different projects or different initiatives that support different products being rolled up to the specific product levels and look at all the contributing projects or initiatives that are rolling up into each of those products. For example, the Cisco ASA product has an upgrades and migration and Windows 7 compliance project that supports that in this particular view. The idea is we can look at this in a variety of different ways, but the idea an entire portfolio with all the dimensions of a project and portfolio management system we discussed earlier are embodied in this so that we can get all those dimensions of information for all of our activities. And if we think about this, just from AHA to Project Online, on the AHA side, you've got really the higher level strategy, which includes the mission, visions, goals, and the actual products themselves, and then defining work down to that master feature, and requirement level. Over on the project side, you have a high-level roll-up of portfolios into products, which could be portfolios of projects in and of themselves. Then you have the projects themselves, which are the individual discrete efforts to support getting those products out the door. And then ultimately for execution, those have to be broken out into some kind of higher level summary tasks and the detailed tasks of which we're going to execute against for an overall execution plan. Now, optionally, if you're using an Agile tool, and we're using Visual Studio as the example in this particular case, there are going to be projects over there, and they can be broken out in a variety of different ways, which we'll talk about in a second. And then you're going to build backlogs for the features down to the user stories and then specific tasks or any bugs that actually get arisen in the process that have to be dealt with. And the idea is that that can be included in the process as well. Now, OneConnect, as we see here, is the glue that ties all these together. And in a bidirectional fashion can make sure the integration of this happens seamlessly so that we can use best-of-breed tools for the task at hand, but have it come together as a singular common solution. So if we look at how these things map at a high level, and there's other mappings that happen, but just to understand, the products that you identify in AHA will come over and be identified as products in the portfolio over in Project Online. If we look at the master features over here, we'll notice that the master features are these higher level items that would become actual project line items, which would sum up into specific products as we have different projects that may support delivering a product or product line to the marketplace. And then from a features perspective, those would track over to what we call summary tasks in project, from which then we can actually detail out more detailed tasks from a schedule perspective in Microsoft Project. Now, ultimately, if you're using an Agile tool and Project Online is your central portfolio, you're going to have details that happen over here that may feed back into here so that we roll up and get a holistic view of everything in the center of the world here in Project Online. So a project in Project Online may track over to what's defined as a project over here in Visual Studio. And what's nice about this, there's a flexible way to do that. For the Agile folks, a project in Project Online may track to an epic over in Visual Studio, or it may actually track to a project over in Visual Studio, or they may be using a feature or function called area paths that decide that an area path equals a project over in Project Online. We're happy to talk to you about that more, but the idea is whatever you're defining as a project here can track to a project line item in your portfolio in Project Online. And then ultimately, when you're building softwares or products, backlogs are built into which they're usually broken down into features. Those features are usually broken down to specific user stories, and then those user stories are often broken into subtasks or tasks, which also bugs can arise to support the completion of those. And the idea is that all of these would flow back to Project Online for visibility from a portfolio management perspective, as well as for tracking things like resource and cost, etc. So hopefully this explains a little about the biplane interaction on that. And with that, I think we should take a look at some of this stuff in action. And with that, Matthew Willey will pick up the ball here and show us some of the integrated solution. Matthew?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jim. All right. So I'm logged in here into AHA. And, AHA is really focused at the product manager or product owner type of role, as Jim was explaining, building product strategies and visions and, roadmaps and so on and so forth. And so I can come in and I can define things. What's the vision of my product? What's the mission, the weaknesses, strengths, just do some types of SWOT analysis here. I can also then, from there, define things like personas. Who are we targeting? Who's our target market from more of a product marketing type of perspective, and get into that. Understanding, who are the people that might buy this? Who are the decision makers? Who are the people that would be using it? So on and so forth. And really getting into the product strategy side of things. So it's really targeted at that. From there, I can define things like competitors, and I can get into goals and initiatives. We want to try to achieve certain things, very high-level strategic goals of our products. Where are we trying to go? And then certain initiatives that get into that. I then get into release planning, and that's very important for many organizations. Being a product manager myself for many years and managing multiple different products and product lines, everyone's always interested in what are we doing and when are we going to bring it to market. And, when you're looking at Agile on a smaller basis from more of an execution perspective, from a Scrum or Kanban or whatever methodology you're using, it's difficult to understand a roadmap past a couple sprints out. This is higher level planning than that. Where are we trying to get to? What are we trying to do? When are we trying to do it? So we can convey that over to our stakeholders, to customers, internally if these are more internal products. It doesn't have to necessarily be customer-facing products. It doesn't even have to be software products. These can be more like services that we're offering, or whatever it might be. Products can be a lot of different things, internal, external, etc. Um, there's an ideation module in here where you can come in and you can let people put in their own ideas, and you can see a list of those coming in, and we can go into them and communicate and collaborate, and people can vote, so there's a whole ideation module in here that can then flow into that process to help understand better what the people you are serving are, your customers, whether internal or external customers, want, and allow that to tie into the whole process. The end result of this in AHA is a set of master features and then features and possibly sub-requirements under that you've defined based off of all of your different inputs and who you're trying to target as a market and your strategy and who we are as a product. Bring that all together and start to define a list of features. And so I have a master feature here, which is my social networking integration feature, and I can define certain information around that here. I can start to do some scoring and prioritization on the AHA scorecard and say, for example, how much sales increase do I think this is going to give us, how much retention of customers, so on and so forth, which would be configured and set up in line with your goals as a product, right? And as a business, for that matter, if you want to take it to one level higher. We can relate that back to specific initiatives, like an integrations initiative and into different goals. This actually even connects up into Office 365. So if I wanted to attach a file to this with a PowerPoint presentation of our product vision or whatever it might be, you can actually do that right from within OneDrive. And so I have attached a PowerPoint presentation of some different reports that we're looking to be able to deliver, so on and so forth. So it connects up really well with Office 365 as well. From there, you can come in and start to do things like, okay, this master feature is no longer under consideration. It's something that we've defined completely. Now we're ready to go in and start planning out and figuring out, when can we really do this based off of real resources we have and real dollars that we have. We have certain, budgets and such. We can break that down into sub-features if we choose to do so as well, which can come over into Project Online. Like in order to do this integration, we have to connect to APIs and, do push notifications and whatever else it might be. And we can comment on this. And, there's lots of great features and functionality in here. But what you can't do is I can't set a budget, especially a time phase budget broken out into different cost categories, into capital and operational expenses. How do I do resource management and figure out who are we actually going to staff on this? Who is available to start working on these new things, and when will they be available? There's a lot of questions we can't answer here. So to do that, we can take this information and we can sync it into a project portfolio management solution, in this case, Project Online, and then we can start to answer some of those questions and start to get more into the portfolio planning side of things to figure out how and when can we do this within our budgets, within our resources, do we need to hire people, whatever it might be, so that we can go and make sure we're making our goals as a product and as a business. So that takes me over here. So let's say that feature had been defined and developed at least at a high level, and now it's been approved at least through a first state to say, let's figure out when we can get this done, when we can fit this in our roadmap to maximize business benefit. And so it comes in as a requested project. So you can see here's social networking integration as a requested project. I'm now in Project Online, which is a part of Office 365 and all of the different applications here that tie in with that. And I can see the high-level status of this. It's brand new, so there's not much. But as it starts to go through the different stages, we'll see things start to update if we're keeping on track or not. And I can click into this, and I can start to define more things that are going to allow me to do some better planning. In a pure Agile world, a particular person is only working on one project at a particular time, so costs are steady, but that really only takes account labor costs. There are other costs to developing products. There are servers that we have to host. There is maybe, components that we were going to purchase, so on and so forth. There are other costs that we have to take into account. So in the real world, in the business world, and what a lot of businesses require is still a financial plan. And that's what we're looking at right here. So we can see for this particular project, I can now come in and build out my budget, break that down into different categories like hardware, software, facilities. Labor is just one piece of that. How long are we going to need these people for, so on and so forth, and really come in and build out my budget. Later on, I'm also going to be able to track forecasts and actuals and bring in all kinds of other things as we get to the execution side. But right now, we're still trying to figure out not only if we want to do this, but when can we do it with the resources that we have and within the constraints that we have. Which takes me to the next piece, which is really around resource management. So within Project Online, I can go and I can start to build out my high-level resource plan. I don't necessarily have to get down to a detailed level at this point of here are the 100 bugs that we have to do and the 50 user stories and whatever it might be. I can start at a very high level and just try to understand I'm going to need this many developers, I'm going to need this many business analysts, I'm going to need certain people. Maybe I know I need Lisa because she has a certain knowledge, whatever it might be. I can come in and create high-level resource plans here right within Project Online so we can understand the types of resources and or who we're going to need and for what period of time we're going to need them, and then be able to do some what if analysis and figuring out how and when can we get these things done with the resource pool we have, and or do we need to bring on new resources, new teams online to go and actually execute on this work. And you can look at it at different levels of granularity. Right now I'm looking at it by week, but I could switch this to by month and or by quarter, depending on what level of detail you're trying to put at this point. And everything in here is, very easy to set up. So if I know I need a developer within this particular period of time, I can simply drag and drop that over and then put in a little details here. I think I need a full-time developer, 8 hours a day, 100% allocated, or maybe part-time, 4 hours a day, 50% if you're not going traditional Scrum necessarily, which many organizations, don't have the luxury of being able to do so. If you are, great, leave it like that, and then you can put in a task name here. I need someone to develop the integration, authentication, whatever it might be. And so you can put in high-level types of descriptions around the pieces of work that you're putting people to. But I'm not getting down to the detailed task, subtask, user story, type of level, very high-level buckets of work, just so we can understand, is this going to take 10 people, 20 people, 50 people, 100 people? Is it going to take 3 months, 6 months, a year? And what types of resources are we going to need? And so you can do that at a very high level, and that actually translates back into cost as well, which feeds into your financials, right? So now that I understand at a high level the resources needed, the financials needed, I defined benefits up front, but I can continue to build on that, and there are modules within Project Online to do so. I can get more into the portfolio analysis side of things, which is a little more than a roadmap. It's more like not what do I want to do, but actually what can I do within my constraints. As an example, we have a $3 million budget, right? We can only spend $3 million building products within this product line for this period of time that I'm looking at. Where should we focus on? Which projects, initiatives, you could refer to these as epics in some organizations, should we be focusing on to try to make our goals? And what this is telling me is, hey, you should do these things with your $3 million, the ones that are under selected. You shouldn't do these ones. That's going to give you 76% of the value. If we were to do everything, we would get 100% of the value. It's going to give you the most value for your amount of dollars you have. And you can see estimated total benefits of that is $7 million for your $3 million investment. We can look into ROIs. We can look into NPVs, IRRs. If you're more on the agile or safe side of things, we can do WSJF and throw other types of metrics in here. Weighted shortest job first, if you're not familiar with that. Another way of scoring or prioritizing different buckets of work or buckets of value, if you want to call them that. And so really look at this from a cost perspective. There's lots of other views and bells and whistles in here, but that's kind of the basics of it. From there, then, I can go, well, what if we're willing to make a bigger investment? What if we're willing to put $5 million into this? How is that going to affect things? Well, now I can get up to 85% of the value. I can get total benefits up to $11 million. So we got an extra few $1 million there. And we can see how that aligns to our strategic alignment and our different goals, and really get into this of how can I optimize and select the right chunks of work to get my business and my products the most value, right? From there, just because we have the dollars to it, even if we get that $5 million, doesn't necessarily mean we have the resources to do that within the time periods that we're trying to get it done, right? We've built out that roadmap. This is what we would like to do. This is what we would love to do. And here's the way we can get the funding to do it. Doesn't necessarily mean we have the resources to do it. And that's a big problem in a lot of organizations. This can allow me to plan up front and figure out how are we really going to actually go and execute on this work within the resources we have, and or do we need to hire resources, and of which type, and at what times, and when do we need them, and start answering those types of questions. So what I'm looking at here is based off of all the things I'm trying to load in. It already took out everything that I don't have budget for. It's saying if you do nothing, if you try to do these projects when they're being asked to be done, when they were originally planned, with the resources you currently have, you can't do them all. And not only that, you should focus your resources on these. These are going to give you 70% of the value. That's the most efficient way to get the most value with the resources you have. Don't do these. You can always, by the way, force things in or force things out. So if there's a project you absolutely have to do, even back on the first page there on the cost side, I can force things in. If it's a government compliance project or whatever it might be, I can always force things out if I absolutely don't want to do them for whatever reason as well. But then I can start to play with this and go, okay, well, how do we get these things done, right? How do we go and execute on all this work that's been approved and we have funding for and that's been planned and we know customers, internal or external, are asking for? Well, there's two options. Number one is we can take this and we can move it out. So we can say, what if I stagger these a little bit better? So I can say, what if we move this out 3 months, 6 months, whatever it might be, some of these lower priority, lower value projects. If we stagger it a little bit more, then I hit recalculate, it's going to be able to move more things in because we're not working on as much at the same time. But we have to be willing to get these things later on, which is going to affect how quickly we are able to retrieve that value, whether it's revenue or whether it's efficiencies or whatever it might be, cost savings, etc. The other option is, what if I hire resources? What if I hire 3 more resources, recalculate, and it'll go and chug and run all of its algorithms and figure out, okay, if I have 3 more resources, those don't necessarily have to just be people. They can be plants. They could be pieces of equipment. 3D printers was a scenario I had recently, so on and so forth. Now I can actually, with 3 more people, it moved in 2 more projects here. So, maybe that's an easy no-brainer for us. We have the budget. Let's hire 3 more people. Maybe those are temporary contractors. Maybe they're full-time employees. Up to us. And there's a really cool report in here I like called the Hired Resources Report. And there's lots of different ways you can look at this. You can look at a heat map of where your problems are, reds and yellows and such. I don't have enough developers in this period of time because of these projects. And but I really like this report. It just kind of lays it out for you. It tells me I need 3 developers. And here are the projects I need to put them on from this date to that date, the cost, the work, based off of a rate that I've defined. It just kind of lays it out, makes it really easy. A lot better than trying to do these types of things in Excel spreadsheets, which happens very, very commonly, in this line of business, in this field. So from that, then you can come up with a plan. Scenario A, I'm going to hire 3 people. Scenario B, we need to push these projects out to get everything done. Scenario C, maybe a combination of the both. And as a business, we can decide what we're comfortable with doing, where we want to make our investments, and then decide to move forward and go and actually execute. Once we get to execution, as Jim mentioned, we can execute on that right here within Project Online. So I could come in and I could pick my particular project and I could say I want to open this up in Project Desktop. And there are actually some agile planning capabilities within Project Desktop these days, not just waterfall, but they are fairly light capabilities. If your agile team is already built into another tool and utilizing that successfully, and maybe all the DevOps capabilities like test management and load performance, source code, those types of things as well, then we have integrations to Agile tools as well from here, so we can integrate into, say, Visual Studio Team Services, which is the cloud version of TFS, or Team Foundation Server, which you might be using as well. We can also integrate to, or Jira, or other different tools. It's not a full list by any means, but from here we can then go and execute on it there, roll back the high-level status, so we still have one place to see all of our different projects, the portfolio of those projects. And we can do things like, I want to group this up by product, for example, and I can come in and I can see all the different products that we have going on, the projects that are going on for them, the status of those, and then that all totals up and shows me things like resources and cost. We're spending $1 million on the current projects that are going on for this particular product. And we're spending this many hours, so on and so forth, and see where our investments are going, and look at those budgets and then compare them versus actuals and others, and so on and so forth. From there, not only can we see different views right here within Project Online, but we can roll that up into reports and dashboards that can be very valuable for providing to stakeholders, to leadership, to maybe even customers, whoever it might be, and I can start to see things like we see here. This particular dashboard is what we call our Agile PPM Portfolio Dashboard. On the top left, I see things that are more traditionally waterfall bases, things like portfolio cost and risk and ROI, but it's not actually just our waterfall projects that we're executing on that would have went through that same, planning process. It's a mixture of both. So we might have some agile, some waterfall, even some hybrid where it's some of that project might be agile or waterfall. Doesn't matter. It comes all together into one place without having to do a lot of manual mushing together of data in Excel or data warehouses. It all just takes care of itself. We can report on it here and see here's the total cost of my total portfolio of all of the different projects we have going on across different products and product lines and even other things like operational projects if I choose to include that in the mix. Scrolling down here, I can see things like project status across all of our different projects. I can get into resource load, who's working on what, who's over allocated and not. And on the right side, I can still bring in more traditional agile metrics if I choose to do so as well, and or safe type lean metrics. I have other examples of that. But I can see things like sprint burnups and burn downs over time, bug trends. Are we going up? Are we going down? Hopefully we're going down. User story cumulative flow diagrams, velocity, whatever it might be, we can start to bring all those things into one place. So I don't have to try to go to AHA or Project Online or our Agile tool, VSTS or Jira, to get different sets of reports on different sets of data. I bring it all together in one place, so as a manager or an executive, stakeholder, whatever I might be, I can get everything all from one picture. From there, I can drill into these things and I can click on, say, project status, and maybe I want to understand that timeline or that roadmap of what's going on. I can come in and see how these projects are doing, the high-level status, and if I go to different tabs, I can get different types of status. Like, for example, if I go into my timeline, I can come in and start to understand when things are planning to happen, how those are laid out over time, so on and so forth here, right from within that report. And then there's lots of ways to consume that. For example, I can get an email every day, every week, however often, with this piece of information right in it without having to do any manual reporting. So it really ties the whole process together from very start in high-level definition of products over in AHA and their vision and such, into the more project portfolio management side and how are we actually going to make this happen, and then down into the very details of user stories and bugs in your Agile tool of choice and or in Project Online if you're doing waterfall and or some light Agile. And then report off of all of that together and bring the big picture and understand really what's going on across everything and try to get that higher level portfolio program level of what's going on. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Jim for just a couple more slides, and then we'll let you guys go here for the day. So there you go, Jim.
All right. Can you see my screen? All right, terrific. Well, thank you, Matthew. That helped illustrate and show in action some of the concepts we talked about here today. So just in review, new product development is accelerating along with the pace of change, and we're getting more and more a higher percentage of new product development projects into the mix. There's organizations that are using a variety of disconnected tools today, but we showed today how bringing those things together, if they're already entrenched and in use, things like AHA, Project Online in the center, and then Agile tools like Visual Studio and Jira being brought into the mix. Silos of information ultimately are barriers to success. If we can't make that information work together and we have to do duplicate entry in different systems, or we take a lot of manual effort to do mashups of that data so that we can do combined reporting, the things that Matthew showed today actually makes that reporting and that output and assessment or consumption of data a more natural output of your process. Hopefully we showed you today that project and portfolio management capabilities are important to the overall success of NPD. So while tools like AHA can help you with the vision, strategy, and upfront planning on a lot of these things, the execution, the financial tracking, the resource management planning and tracking, the portfolio analysis and optimization that we went through to tie what we can do together with our capacity for budget and resource is an important component to getting a product and a successful project out the door. OneConnect from Wicresoft is what makes the tools work together as a complete synchronized solution. It should allow the users to work in their tool of choice or the tool that's most conducive to their role in the process, and then have that information synchronized automatically without them having to do anything unnatural in the process. And OneConnect really offers you productized connectors as a service, meaning you subscribe to it and it just works. You don't have to worry about maintaining it, changing it, and staying top of changing APIs and the rapidly changing technologies that are out there. The idea is that you get the synergies without the headache. And then ultimately, hopefully you saw how these things can tie together and add value to one another. If you're interested in learning more, we are Wicresoft. We are a joint venture with Microsoft. They founded us jointly in 2002 and continue to be a part owner of our company. We are a global company that provides consulting, business process outsourcing, managed services, and even staffing to our customers across the globe. We're a triple gold certified Microsoft partner in project and portfolio management, collaboration and content, and cloud productivity. And we work very closely with the Microsoft field in bringing these things to market. If we look at it, we provide business applications like OneConnect and a variety of other value-added innovations that we've developed, as well as the consulting services to help people get the most out of their investment in these technologies, as well as the education and training to help adoption. And as I had mentioned, staffing services and even running these things for people as managed services is something that we do for some as well. Ultimately, we cover a lot of the Microsoft stack, whether it be Dynamics, Project, Visual Studio, or SharePoint, and all going through the Power BI analytics. So the idea, we have a lot of flexibility to make sure that different technologies work well together for you to get the outcome and the outputs that you're looking for. Now, if you like what you saw today, I know we gave you a very high-level overview today. We're happy to help you with a free assessment and roadmap of what it might take to get you from where you're at into some of the technologies that we saw here today. We're also happy to arrange a personalized one-on-one demo, so it's not generalized. If we understand your requirements a little bit better, we can tailor something and show and position this for how it would best fit your organization. And in the right circumstances, we may be able to help you to get into a chaperone trial of the solution as well. If you want to reach out to us, you can contact us at wicresoft.com, and you can get more information at wicresoft.com or about OneConnect at wicresoft.com/projectconnect. And then we have a whole slew of on-demand recorded webinars and upcoming webinars that you can go to at wicresoft.com/webinars. You will be receiving a copy of this presentation as well as a recording of the webinar itself for having registered for this, so no need to take this down. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for joining and spending some of your valuable time with us today, and hopefully Wicresoft can be of value to you in the future with this and other technological innovations that we have come up with. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.